Hello, thank you for joining RasPipKr tutorials. I'm Martin Parker, and in this video we're going to continue with our Tic Tac Toe game that we're creating using the tkinter library. As you can see, it's very small, and when you click a button nothing happens. In the previous video we basically just got this onto screen using this bit of code here. But whilst this is on screen, you'll see that we've got our layout here in the same way that the buttons are on the screen. So we've got our string variables here, and we've got our dictionary here in the same positions of how we are referencing to it. But in this video we want to make these buttons bigger, and we want to do something when we click the button. So let's just close that. Now first of all, let's set the width a little bit bigger. If we spell it correctly, it would help. We'll put it to the width of 3, and we'll do a height. Normally if you do it one less it works out better. So let's now here we are working with the keys, and the string variables are being passed in as the values from this dictionary. So we can't use the I for what we're going to do for the buttons. So we'll call this buttons index, and we'll call this set to 0, and every time I go through the for loop we want to increment that so it matches up with our dictionary. So we'll do buttons index plus equals 1. So we're running an index working with the layout, and what we want to do is let's we'll put as function first. So we'll define our clicked function. So when you click the button, it's going to run this function, but we want to find out which button we're working with. So we'll pass button in as our value, as an argument, sorry, and we want to work with the string variable of that button, so we'll call it button var for button variable. So first things first, let us print the button and the button var, just so we can see something to screen. So down here, when we create our button, bearing in mind we're doing this through a for loop, so we need to do our command is equal to, because we're using arguments in our function, we'll have to use a lambda, so basically like a throwaway function. You don't really need to work with it much, just when you click on the button, because this gets assigned to each button. So we're going to work with the button equals to the index, so that's how we're going to reference which button we're working with, and I'll get back to which button we're working with in a second. So we're going to pass in the buttons index, and let's put this onto a new line because it's getting a bit long, and we want to use our button variable is equal to the string variable that we're setting here. So I'm just going to grab this, so copy that and paste that in there, and then because we've got our two arguments variables, we can put our colon and now put our clicked function with the button and the button variable, well, like so. Now I mentioned about we're using the index to find out which button. So what we want to do is we need to know which button we're working with, because we can't just pass it into it there. So if we create an actual buttons list, so we'll set it as an empty list, but just before we change the index, we'll do buttons dot append. We're going to pass in our button, which is called here my button, my btn. So it's going to put each button in to that list. Okay, and that'll be a tkinter button object. And then what we can do here is if I do the button var, so we're going to set the new text, because we want to have it so when we click on the button it's either going to be an X or an O, so we'll set it to an X at the moment as a test, and because we know the index of the button in regards to the buttons list, so we can use buttons and then pass in the index of button dot config, and then we can change the state equal to disabled. So that button is then disabled. So let's try that and see how that looks. So we need to make it a little bit bigger. So notice how that when I've clicked that button once, it's displayed the index, which is correct, 0, because we've got in the dictionary we're referencing to the key and the string variable as the value, so we're keeping everything as a reference, easily readable. Let's bring that other window back up. So if I click this button, it should be an 8 and pi variable for the string variable 8, like so. And this should be a 2, and this should be a 6. There we go. Cool. Right, so now I've got that doing. We don't really need to see that line, but what we want to do is we want to rather than setting it to an X each time, we want to, every time the button is clicked, we want to know how many times it's being clicked, so we need to know how many goes as being done, and then we can select either an X or a O. So if we call a variable, we can put it up here or anywhere. Yeah, we'll put it here. Clicks. So that's a 0. And in this list, in this function, we want to increment it, because this runs every time you click a button. Because this is outside of a function, this is in the main code space. This is a global variable, so we need to, for us to change it in here in this function, we need to set a global of clicks. And now, after we've done stuff, we'll do clicks plus equals 1. Now if we didn't put this line here, it's going to throw an error. It's going to say something like clicks is not defined, because this is looking as if this is a local variable, and that's why we've put it as a global, because we're working with this number here. So because we've got our clicks button incremented, rather than just setting it to the button var set x, we can do if clicks modulus of 2 is equal to 0, then we'll set it to an x. So rather than hard coding it to an x, we'll set it to the variable of x that we've set up here, and then else button var dot set, and we'll set it to the o variable that we set up here. So we can always just change it up here and it'll always run it through here. So if I run this, now the button disables. We've got an X. I'm clicking like crazy at the moment, and if I click another box, we've got an O, and we can click that as many times because it's disabled, nothing's happening. And if I click another one, we get an X, we get an O, we get an X, we get an O, and we've got a winner here, but we can still click another box. So that's something we need to address, and we'll do that in the next video. And we can set the rest. So we've got our layout a little bit bigger, and we've got some functionality going on. And in the next video, like I say, we'll do the checking for if there's a winner, and we'll make these a little bit bigger. We'll make the text slightly bigger as well. Okay, well that's it for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.